So we already live. I said we already live. Perez, can you scoot the lamb a little bit? I don't know why I don't want to do the landscape.
I don't want to be holy because them folks looking for
me. Because we are live.
Okay.
Yeah, we are live. Okay. Mic here. Let me soundboard right now. Nah, we yeah. Slide over. Give us a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to be live with the It's a Wrap with Reggie and Sam podcast. Today is part 2 of our generation gap. There we go. Our generation gap conversation that we had last week. Joining us live. Hey Pam, thanks for tuning in. And joining us live should be Reginald Rutledge and Debria. Why do I always mispronounce it? Debria Lyles. But in studio with us today is we have Pastor Perez Watkins from the Fort Bethel Baptist Church. Is it a Baptist church?
It's a Baptist.
Okay, Baptist Church. Baptist Church, and where is it located?
Lexington, Georgia.
Lexington, Georgia.
Big County, Oglethorpe.
Bright lights, big city, Oglethorpe. Listen, what we wanted is to expound on. We're going to kind of like do a recap until everybody gets here. But today's focus is primarily going to be on faith and how important it is. And I think I picked a great guy, human being, to discuss that, because he was into his faith was so important to him early on, and it served him well. I think he and I had a conversation. I was telling him that was why I needed him to come on in Christ, and so he graciously said that he would do that. Hey Ronald Barnes, how you doing? Thanks for coming on, being with us. Yes, so Perez will come on and how important spirituality is. To recap, like last week when I was talking to a young lady at work and telling her about the nature of this conversation, this series that we were starting. It actually wasn't going to be a series. It was actually just going to be just one. But as I posted on Facebook earlier today, we got over 1,000 views on my YouTube channel.
Wow.
So that let me know that this thing was indeed a subject that was on a lot of people's minds. So we decided to do a part 2, possibly a part 3, but like getting back to what I was saying, what she was saying about your generation, Brianna. And again, Brianna's in the studio with us too. She's off camera right now, but I'm gonna drag her by the head and put her over here in a minute. But anyway, what she was saying, and I said this last week, if you go back and look at it, she said the problem with our generation is they don't understand how important spirituality is in your decision making and the goals that you set for yourself and how you view life in general. And I thought, coming from a 23-year-old Perez, that was really, really deep for her to be that at 23. And it reminded me of you because you started yours before then. Yeah. I can remember, I don't even think you were 12, Perez. Yeah. And it was, and you could tell that it was on you because I was with a group called Men for a Better Barry County. Yep. And there were the events that we would come in, and you just stood out. You know, it was because you had an unwavering faith in God and a higher power right then. So that was something that I never forgot, and it followed you. And like I told you when we had the conversation last week, it served you well. All right, Reggie, bringing you on. You're being added, so don't reject it. You should, getting back to what I was saying, and it served you well about where you are, and it's going to serve you well to where you're going, because in this world, what we see now, Perez, and I think you'll agree with this, it is so much debauchery, so much deception, and so much that people don't really get about what God is and what He's and how He is. Could you speak to them about that?
What's the question again now?
It was about the way the world is now. I mean, and then our kids, of course, I'm not gonna get myself in trouble. The alleged things that's going on with T.D. Jake now and others pastors like Jamal Brown. Then the church, I guess the church community is what I want to say, seem to be divided about what the young man did say when they walk it out, that type of thing. A lot of people, it seems like it's a split split. So like some people don't think anything wrong with that, but some people seem to tend that, that's not what the gospel is. The gospel stands on its own. It doesn't need to be true gospel. So what would your take on that?
Well, the thing is that we have to realize that we have to serve this present age is our calling to fulfill. We hear deacons sing it. The good deacons stand up front of the church and they sing it almost every Sunday. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify. And we have to realize there's a charge to serve this present age. Scripture also says that if new wine is poured into an old vessel, it will bust, the vessel will bust, and that wine will spew out on the ground and be good for nothing. The same thing, if old wine is poured into new skin, the same thing will happen. But if new wine is poured into a new skin, it will hold up and serve its purpose. And what we have to realize is that some traditions are good, but all traditions are not. And we want the young people to come to church. We want the young people to participate. We want them to serve on the Ursha Bird. We want them to sing in the choir. We want them to get up there on Easter Sunday morning and do their Easter speeches and do their Christmas speeches. But then after that, it's just be seen and not heard. Just sit down and be quiet. And the fact of the matter is that churches, if we really look at it, is on the verge of being extinct. You have COVID that came in, and people now has excuse why they don't come to church. And our young people, they're not going to go anywhere that they are not wanted. Sam and you're in our time, our parents made us go. It was no question. If they didn't go, we went.
We didn't go. If they didn't go, they sent us.
They sent us, right. It was no question. I remember Dot Riley was the one that made sure we went to church on white oak brown van. She would come pick us up on that brown van. And my mom would say, hey, y'all need to get ready because Doc going to be here and get on out. Well, this is a new age where parents necessarily are not making their children go. And then these young adults, Brianna age and younger and older, they want to go where they feel accepted and feel like they have a voice. And the church has to make sure they have a platform where the young people are not just being seen, but they are being heard as well. So now, my sermon titles sometimes be what's the word I'm looking for? Can seem provocative. I might take a rap lyric or a lyric from a rap song and make it my title just to grab people's attention, and so that the young people can relate to what I'm talking about in the sermon. So I have yet to see the video of Bishop Murphy and that Watch Night service. But I've been hearing a lot about it. My take on it is we got to be careful that there has to be a division between secular world and the Christian world. Now, I probably would have played the instrumental, but for far as having the real lyrics out there, I probably wouldn't have did that.
When you say boundaries, I mean, when you said, that's why I say boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries. Yeah.
But like you say, because you get into a gray area, and I think, like I said, the church seems to be divided. Some of the older preachers are totally against what happened.
Right.
But I guess we kind of ventured down the topic. Well, what I really wanted to get back to was talking to you about your spirituality and how important that was to you at such a young age, and how did that influence the decisions that you made when you got older? Because one of the things that we touched on last week, we talked about we talked about the choices that Brianna's generation seemed to be making, not just your generation, but the generation that's prior before you, because the deaths with the fentanyl, I cannot understand for the life of me why somebody would take that chance. And a lot of times they don't know they're taking that chance. That's what I'm saying. But then again, if you don't know, you're really taking the chance because you trusted somebody that you don't know that is selling you something, and you wind up dying. And you agree. I think you'll agree with this, Perez, that when we start talking about the circle of life, our kids are supposed to bury us. We're not supposed to bury them.
Right.
And I just cannot imagine. I just can't even fathom what someone who's lost a child or buried a child, especially a child at any age, but to have a child that's been like 20 something years old, been in there your life, been for 20 something years old, and all of a sudden one morning they're gone, one afternoon they're gone. And I think that kind of correlates into the belief system.
Mhm.
That they don't value their lives. Some of them, like my friend Reggie said one time, he said that, the last time we had one, he said they don't expect to live past 26, 27 years old. So they kind of, that kind of doesn't resonate with them. So taking that chance doesn't really seem like a chance. So I don't know, did that have anything to do with how you made your decisions growing up?
Let me say, my my sense of uh, belonging um, to God started when I was 10 years old. I had a desire to, you know, I realized that there was a God, and I realized that, I felt alone in this world. And going to church, Sunday school, and things of that nature, I was getting taught about this God and how He loved all, in spite of all. How He here for us all, sent His Son to die for the sin of all. So at that age, I'm trying to find something to feel connected to. You know, I had a family, a beautiful family, loving family, but sometimes you need more than family love. And so, in my searching for love, if you will, I found myself getting in trouble, doing stuff that I didn't have no business doing. Um, and so, church taught me first of all self love. Um, that God loved me enough that I should love myself. And I should love myself the way that God loved me. And that's in spite of my flaws and all. And so the problem with the world now, I'm not even going to say this generation, because the truth of the matter, you got folks my age and your age overdosing in fentanyl and drugs, as well. So I can't even just say it's Brianna age group, that 20 to 30 age group. It's on up. The problem now is that we have desensitized God, that God is not needed. And we're looking for love really in all the wrong places. When we hurt, we looking for healing. And so the next thing to healing is smoke a little weed, drink a little alcohol. It takes your mind off of what you're dealing with. But the problem with smoking and drinking is that high is only temporary. Whereas that relationship with God is consistent. His love for me will never change. But this high it'll change, if that makes sense. People will change.
I think it goes away is what.
Right. It goes away. Then when you come back off this high, your reality is still right here. And matter of fact, don't manifest itself. And not only you got financial issues, but now there's mental issues that's knocking at the door. And then we get high again and come back down. Now it's depression, along with all these other demons that's knocking at your door. And you find yourself getting surrounded more and more with problems than solutions. And you find yourself looking for your next high constantly and trying to stay high because you're trying to stay out of this world, this room where all your demons are at. You just want to be away from it. And so I truly believe if we could get back to the basic of what love is and who love is,
Yeah.
I think we can get over this pandemic of overdosing and things of that nature. I hope I answered.
And I hear you when you say that people 30 and up, they're also overdosing on fentanyl. That's a whole different subject for another room. What I didn't understand, what I was trying to get to, was that the alarming rate at which the young people are and I guess it kind of when it affects you personally, because I personally know a young lady that lost her son.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally know a young lady that lost her daughter. These were people that I had interacted with, watching them grow up from here to here, and then that happened to them. And I guess which started me just thinking of what is it? Because that they weren't the first person that fentanyl killed. Like you say, it kills 50-year-olds too.
Right.
It kills 40-year-olds. But what I'm saying is, I see a disconnect. For me, it seems like there's a disconnect between the spirituality, what they believe in about life beyond as they see it, which is why they make the kind of choices that they make. And that was why I was thinking, because I've been knowing you all your life, for real. Like I said, your family, my family, we've been we've been tight since life. Like I said, me and your Uncle Nathan from first grade all the way up to now. And that's a serious bond that he and I have. I mean, we can go months, years without seeing one another, but as soon as we see one another, he feels the same way about me as I do about him. I miss him, man. I love it. Your other uncle, Mark. They were looking. I mean, he was like such a big mentor to me growing up. And they would, and Mark was really against stuff like that, you know, because he always said, do something that makes sense. Don't do something that don't make no sense. That was Mark. Mark was telling me this. We worked at the county barn here in Washington. I remember, and there's another subject. There's another subject. We have NYC. That was the National Youth Corps, where they had jobs. We had jobs like 8 weeks during the summer, and we got a little check, probably about $60 at the time, but you had to remember minimum wage was like $2.10 an hour. So dollars workable back then. But anyway, Mark was telling me this, and I was 15. Mark was 16. He had that kind of wisdom when he was 16. But they used to tell me an old soul anyway. But what I'm saying is we grew up with people like that, and so you kind of felt a responsibility when you got a real friendship not to let that person down. And I think sometimes, for me, it seems like the younger generation, when they say friend, they kind of, for me, they kind of get it mixed up because a friend, and I think you'll attest to this, and a friend's not going to put your freedom in jeopardy. Absolutely. A real friend, a real friend's not going to ask you to lie for him, and to downgrade your character. Not a real friend. Now, if anybody asks you, like a lot of people say, well, we're going to rob this bank together. That's not a friend. Absolutely. That's a partner in crime. That's why I keep. So,
but there's a difference between friend and associate.
Okay.
So,
say something. Then he goes, what?
And that's the thing that a lot of people fail to realize. Everybody is not your friend. A friend should stick close like a brother or a sister.
Absolutely.
They should call out your flaws. They should also applaud your success. Now, associate, they just only with you to hang with you, get what they can from you, or pass away time. So there's a difference between a associate and a friend. So we got to make sure you understand the difference between an associate and a friend.
And that's why I was going with that, because that was, like I said, with your uncles, we were that way growing up. I mean, Nathan would never ask me to, I'm going up here at Mayfield, steal some candy, watch out for me. Nathan would never do anything like that. But I had to, by the same token, if Nathan had, a Reese's cup, I had for it with mine.
Exactly.
See what that was the type. But so I think it's structure that helps them make better decisions too. And another thing that came out last podcast was that you don't see a lot of old people anymore growing up. And we never, and I think that was kind of like an epiphany for me, because I never really thought about that. Because when we were growing up, I would bring out some old native people. I'm gonna laugh and say, you remember Dickie Boy? You remember Charlie Lattimore?
Yeah.
You remember Rabbit? Wow. See what I'm saying?
Wow.
We never realized how important they were to the fabric of us growing up. You see what I'm saying? Because we look out there at Daniel. Can't forget Daniel.
Absolutely.
So we never realized how important that was to the fabric of us growing up, because now when y'all look at y'all, I think it was you that said that you don't see a whole bunch of old people out there no more. They in the house, or you don't know about them anymore.
That's true.
I never even thought about that. And Brianna, when you said that, what made you say that?
When we was on the subject, when we were saying, you asked a question about why do young people feel like they don't have to listen to older people or something like that?
Yeah.
You remember when you had asked a question about?
Reggie is saying something about you keep declining, so I keep trying to add you, but he says you're declining for whatever reason. I don't know if it's setting on your phone, but you're actually a co-host on this, so you can, if you'll go to the event page and click co-host, it should let you come on in. Now go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What you said?
But yeah, you had asked a question about like why do young people feel like they don't have to listen to older people, and I had made the comment where it be they want to be heard when they're around their age group. Like like when we go into the club, we see our grandmas and our
and that blew my mind, Perez. Because when she said we see people your age, I thought she was talking about, because some people, I'll be 62 next week.
Right.
And some people say, you don't look like you're 62. So I'm thinking she was like, well, maybe if talk about, 50 or 40 years old.
What she said.
She said my age, and I was literally floored. I was literally floored when she said that. Are you serious?
Absolutely.
You got 60-something people in the club trying to hit
on them. Yeah. Absolutely.
That still blows my mind.
And that's true. And we were lucky to have those people. Now, granted, they were not perfect. The people that I remember, they sit on the corner. They 9 out of 10 had a beer in their hand, a cigarette in their hand, or just in there talking and things of that nature. But when they saw us doing what we didn't have no business doing, they still spoke up and said, hey, don't be doing that. Don't make me go call Juanita. Don't make me call Louise, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, hey, boy, come here, let me tell you something. And they'll drop some knowledge on you.
And why were we so quick to accept that and brand them not because we in the club, I won't say we, but I guess they're in the club with them now, so they don't have no credibility. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, it's like you're doing the same thing we're doing. So it's like, don't try to get, because don't get me wrong, like, I listen to older people. It doesn't go for everybody.
Yeah.
But as far as like, if you out there doing the same, this is in general, if you out there doing the same thing the next person is doing, you cannot correct them. Like if you see me in the club and I see you in the club and you way older than me and you get around like certain people and you want to like try to tell me something, I'm not going to be so fast to quick to listen to you.
Because you're frightened, basically.
Right.
Really. But I guess that's another epiphany I'm having right now, because I guess what you made a ton of sense now. Because one thing about it, we didn't see Charlie Lambo in the club.
Right.
And like you said, we saw him when we saw it.
Right.
Always walking up and down the road. I mean, you can even go with scouts. I mean, folks say what they want to, but if you ever sat down and had a serious conversation with Scout,
right,
you find out he's one of the most intelligent people you ever want to meet in your life.
Exactly.
But the stigma for everybody was, he don't know what he's talking about. He crazy, this and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ever sat down and had a conversation with him, they're probably one of the most intelligent people you ever want to speak. It happened to me once by accident. I just happened to speak to him, and he said something back. I mean, I said something, next thing you know, we into like a 20-minute conversation. I'm like, wow. I was thinking about surprise.
Yeah.
This guy really, he's smart.
Right.
He was smart. And so I guess to bring it back around to what we were talking about when you're talking about making spirituality relevant, how do we do that? I mean, because we're getting the bad examples from,
exactly.
Deacon Ballhead in the club trying to talk to Brianna now, right, and then trying to chastise me on Sunday morning. How do we bridge that gap to make them understand the importance of spirituality? Because one thing I will be forever saying that is one of the most important things to have, and people can say what they want to. I mean, you can find all kind of examples where it's faking, it's phony, but when it's real with you, mm-hmm, not about what it is with somebody else. Mm-hmm. When it's real with you, I'm telling you, it gets you through. Absolutely. It absolutely gets you through.
Absolutely.
And I'm as they say, a living testimony to that. Because like I used to tell people, there was a time when I would tell people I don't believe in God, but people would say, yes, you do. Mm-hmm. But even my brother Dilly, he was like, it's the way you carry yourself. You have to believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I have crazy reasons because I didn't understand why good people suffered.
Right.
And I would always say that if it's an authority or a power that can stop good people from suffering, and he still lets people suffer.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to understand, I had to get in my head about the will of man and the will of God.
Absolutely.
And for me, that turned everything. That, along with the birth of my son, Xavier,
Right.
when I saw what I saw every day, and I realized that, you know what? You seeing a miracle and a blessing every day. And now that miracle and blessing is 31 years old, 6'4", 339 pounds.
Right. Right.
And he's touching and changing people. I mean, on a couple of the podcasts that I talked about, the experience that we had at McDonald's with this lady. And it just sent chills through my spine when her and that guy said that if you go back to the podcast, I'm not going to share here's the try to get you to go to the podcast, go back to the YouTube channel, look at the podcast, like, share, subscribe, trying to get my membership up.
That's right.
But I just saw God through him.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and like I say, I got children, but none of them, when I walk in Xavier's presence,
mm-hmm.
nothing else matters. And he taught me that about God.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like when I was talking over Elder Tabernacle, I was doing, shout out to Pastor Kenneth Cooper, he let me come over and do a little presentation for the autism. And Xavier taught me so much about God, because how he is about me, that's how I'm supposed to be about God. Absolutely. Xavier absolutely thinks there's nothing in this world that I can't do. Mm-hmm. That's just his belief. And when I come around, he thinks everything is all right, and that's the way I'm supposed to be about God. Mm-hmm. But the correlation between those two, and that's my testimony. My son saved me, because they don't tell him what I would have been or what I would have been doing. My train of thought, had he not come into my life, there were people praying for me too. I cannot forget that, and I know for a fact, Miss Gladys Hutchins, who's so gracious, I know she was praying for me every day. And she still does, and I still do pray for her. But when you got them praying grandmas, praying moms. I mean, people think that that's not important, but I need for the young cause. I think people are getting baptized, but then they don't realize what that means. They think, well, that's it. All I had to do is get baptized. Now I get to go to heaven and get to keep doing whatever I do. But how do we change that mindset too? Because they don't want to work for it. They really don't want to work for it. Because somebody said this, and you can give me your point on this too. They said there's a lot of folks going to church every Sunday morning, ain't going to hell.
That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth.
But it's about living the life, not because sometimes it's just about show. Mm-hmm. But again, like I said, when we talk about the spirituality and the faith of how this thing goes and how it's supposed to go, I think it's something that our young people really need to embrace early. And like I said, I think because you embraced it early, that's part of why you're so successful, and that's why you're living the way you live it, because it's in you. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And you gravitated to it so early. Mm-hmm. And it's like you said, it was just what made you think about that at that early age?
Sam, I think about go back to what you said earlier. Our elders had an urgency to have a relationship with God. You look back,
hey Shay,
back then.
What's going on, Roger?
Look back then, and you.
Hey Michelle,
you see how these folks had nothing. Shotgun house with 2 bedrooms with 5 kids, 6 kids sometimes, and sharing a bedroom and things of that nature. But these folks still made it to church, still served God at the table with nothing but chicken feet and gravy and biscuits, and still holding hand and thanking God for the chicken feet, gravy, and the biscuits that's on the table that got to feed all these folks around the table. And I hear about all these things. See, my grandmother had a conversation with me, my mother, and things of that nature, how God brought them through. And so at a young age, I love being around older folks. That was just wisdom. It was just something about being around older folks for me. And so it was nothing to sit around them fellas you was talking about and just sitting and listening to them talk and they get talking about back in the days and things of that nature. And it's all consistent. That even though they are alcoholics, even though they had their habits, they realized that they never would have made it to where they are now if it had not been for God on their side. And so me being around these folks and they dropping this wisdom about I wouldn't have made it without God. I wouldn't have got through this without God. You know, I said to myself, you know, I need this God in my life and I need him now.
Because you realize how amazing you was. That you said, well, so you realized it early. It took me, I was 30 years old before it came to my head. But,
and, you know, and I've been there. You know, the hardest thing for me was losing loved ones and, you know, at an early age. And I'm saying, well, I had the same mindset you had. Well, if there's a God, why would he allow good people to die? Why would he allow good people to be sick and things of that nature? And I'm going to tell you, it was one day at a revival, and the pastor said, what make you think that you don't have to suffer if God allowed his own son to suffer?
Wow.
On a cross that wasn't even meant for him, but he took the place of somebody else. So if God can turn his head and allow his son to suffer for somebody else's wrong, why would God not? What makes you think God don't allow you to go through as well? And then it's the story about Job and how Job suffered. Job ain't did nothing wrong to nobody. Matter of fact, there was a conversation going on beknownst to Job between God and Satan. God came to Satan and said, have you considered my servant Job? And
so he sort of like offered him up.
He offered him up. And so, you know, I said and thought about this, Uncle Sam, and I said to myself, you know, if God had allowed me to go through what I went through, it's because he saw something in me and trusted that I'll be able to go through and still carry a smile on my face. You know, you too, I too have a son with special needs and autism, and Anthony has went through 21 brain surgeries and over 20 brain surgeries, and he has a disease called hydrocephalus, and he has had numerous revisions. And I never forget, one day I sat there, I'm bawling, crying, like, Lord, why would you allow this innocent child go through this? Why? How could you allow him to keep going through this? My son wake up out of his sleep and look at me. He said, Daddy, you okay? And I said, yes, I'm okay. I said, are you okay? He said, I'm good. God got me.
Wow.
A 9-year-old says to me, I'm okay because God got me.
And a child shall lead them.
And out of the mouth of babes come perfected praise. So, you know, that was my realization then, you know, why do bad things happen to good people is because God trusts us to go through it.
Yeah. And then you come from that the rain falls on the just and the unjust.
As well as the unjust. And so
and getting back to what you were saying, and when I look at where I am now with Xavier and the Hope Xavier Foundation and all of that, God was preparing me for this when I was 10. And I'm going to tell you why. Shout out to Baby Jack. We call him Baby Jack Ellington. He just passed this last year. I forget how old. I think he was in his 80s. Mm-hmm. He had autism, but we didn't know it was autism then. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, Jack Ellington used to shave him, do everything, because all Baby Jack could do is rock back and forth and clap his hands. That's all he did. Baby Jack was big. He was big. He was big to us. Like I said, we were 10 and living in the town of 3. And he had a pointed nose, and his dad would like lift his nose up like that. And I'm not gonna call the guy's name, but the people that are around me, they just started laughing. But for whatever reason, Perez, that wasn't funny to me. Mm-hmm. And I never understood it because I looked around and seen all them were laughing because he turned his nose, because he put his nose up, shaving it. But for some reason, that wasn't funny to me. And I was like, you know. But I watched Jack Ellington, his temperament, his patience with his son, and how, you know, he was just going to do what was necessary to do his. I never got a chance to talk to Jack Ellington about this because, like I said, you look back in life and you realize you're being prepared for stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, for whatever reason, I've always had this thing about kids that were being bullied, kids that weren't popular. You know, it was something in me to make me want to comfort them.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? But when I look back, even at 10 years old, God was preparing me for Xavier. And that's the way I look at it now. And it's such a blessing. And I'm so glad that he took the time to let me get it right. It's like you said, he knew I was going to get it right, even though I had doubt. and when I pray, and I pray daily, I tell him I have to ask him for his forgiveness, Perez, for my ignorance and my defiance for all those years.
But that was growth for you, though. You wasn't there in the beginning. It took some time to get to that place where you realize I need to repent daily. I need to be thankful daily, because truly God saw something in me to allow me to go through this, and he kept me through this and prepared me for this moment right here. Ain't nothing happened without God first thinking along that.
Well, he go before.
Yeah, I mean, a day to 1,000 years to God is nothing but a day. So he already knew this is going to happen before we was even born.
Yeah. And
so he's already like chess moving moving 3 moves before. Yeah, that's it. And so it's the same thing. With that logic, we have to understand. And at an early age, for me, that's what helped. I didn't understand everything that was happening to me.
Well, you're not supposed to. Right. You don't have cognitive skills at 12 that you're going to have at 24. You just don't.
But looking back, because they say hindsight is 20/20. Looking back, I'm like, wow, all this was happening for this right here. I never thought I'd be a pastor. But everything that I'm dealing with as a pastor, God was preparing me at 10 years old, 11-year-olds.
Isn't that something?
16-year-old. I started teaching Sunday school at 16 years old.
See what I'm talking about?
And, everything I dealt with, from church hurt to people hurt to just everything, life, I look back and I'm like, okay, so God allowed that to happen, because he knew this was going to happen. And so all he was doing was preparing me. And you and I, we was talking before we went on air about how, you don't have a testimony without a test.
No, absolutely not.
I can't tell you how to overcome drugs, because I ain't never been on drugs. I can't tell you how to deal with a divorce, because I ain't never been married. So I'm the wrong person to come to for counsel for that.
Yeah.
But to the next person that dealt with it and overcame it, this guy earlier was talking about he used to smoke 12 packs of cigarettes until God delivered him. He quit cold turkey. And he can share with somebody that's dealing with it, right, versus me, who ain't never smoked a day in my life. So these things happen for a reason, but it started with this relationship with God. And when you get the relationship with God, and it's not a bad time except a dead time. When you dead, that's it. But as long as breath in your body, you still have an opportunity to get a relationship with God. And through that relationship, you get understanding. A daily walk, you talked about earlier. Yeah. It's not an overnight thing. It's not, I'm getting baptized, so I'm automatically going to heaven. It takes a little bit more work than that, because the Bible said faith without works is dead. Yeah. So you're going to have to put in some work.
That's what they don't understand, because I think as Christians, and what we're supposed to do, the life that we lead is supposed to draw people
absolutely
to God, not to us.
That's right.
Okay, you're not supposed to want to be like me because I drive a certain car. You're not supposed to want to be like me because I live in a certain house. You're supposed to be. It's the joy that you have,
right,
that should be going to. Because, and I think sometimes it escapes, goes over people's heads, so to speak. But correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I'm not a deacon, I'm not a pastor, I just go to church and sometimes pay tithes. But anyway, what I'm saying is, I don't think there's going to be any human beings in heaven. We're talking about spirit.
Absolutely.
And I think what people try to relate heaven to is what their earthly needs are.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's so important to them that they have a mansion. Because I'm gonna be this good person so I can get to heaven and have me a mansion. I'll be like,
yeah,
I don't care nothing about the mansion.
Yeah.
I don't care nothing about the streets of gold. I just want to be in his presence.
Yeah.
I'm good. I don't care about the gold slippers.
Yeah.
I just want to be in his presence.
Yeah, I know that's right, Auntie. Auntie said she wanted it all.
I mean, I get all of that, but for me, I'm still talking about for me. If I get there what I'm gonna do? Get there and say, "What? Ain't no mansion? I'm going back."
Right.
Well, I mean,
Auntie done came out the room, baby. Auntie said I want it all. That's right. That's right.
what I'm saying is, the mansion ain't a deal breaker for me. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Well, and the thing is that when you study your Bible, get in the Bible, you come to realize everybody is not necessarily going to make it into heaven, but you're going to make it to the new heaven, if you will. Heaven is a city prepared for people. Just like Atlanta is a city. We can go in and out of Atlanta as we want. That's what heaven's going to be like. I just want to make it, not the hell, but to the new earth and the new heaven that God has created. Now, if I'm blessed enough to get one of those rooms in that mansion in heaven, to God be the glory.
Yeah, if I do or if I don't, I just want to be.
I'm like Auntie. I want and I want to make it.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying. For me, Sam Hutchins.
That's right. And he said he's going to. I'm going to prepare a place. That's right. That's right.
I'm going to get mine.
Amen.
I mean, if I'm not going to turn it down if it's there, but I'm not going to be disappointed if it's there. And that's my point. If I get there and it's a trailer, I'm fine. I'm in heaven.
To God be the glory. I didn't know how to want to make hell my home. I know that, but
yeah. And again, it's the spirituality thing. It's so important, and it gets you through so much.
Mm-hmm.
And some people think you have to be weak and meek in that spirituality, but it's not. It's not about that.
Well, the thing is, meek and weakness is two different things.
Yeah.
Being meek and humble is not weakness. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm meek and humble. Now, I'll take some lashes. I'll take a slap in the face. But it's only so much I'm going to take before I respond back.
Yeah.
I'm not weak. Being a Christian don't mean that you're weak, because look at the fact what Christianity did for the civil rights movement. If it meant you was weak, we would never have the rights that we have now.
No. Absolutely not.
It took them marching. It took water holes. It took going and stand up telling folks what they're not going to accept. So meekness is not weakness. So that's a misunderstanding. Yeah.
And again, like I said, the whole thing that led to this conversation, and my brother's walk, Dale had his calling, and he told me about his calling. He was, I want to say, 14 when he said he's heard God's voice as clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when he started on the journey. He said the thing of it is, and this is a question I'm gonna pose to you too. He said people still to this day. My brother's 60 years old. Shout out to him and Pastor Snellville Christian Church in Snellville, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
He said people still question his calling. But you'll see some of these jackleg preachers. That's what he calls. You'll see some of these jackleg preachers. It's because they preaching something that somebody else that they like, that they don't want to preach against sin. He said they don't question their calling, but somebody like me, they'll question my calling. Did anybody ever question yours?
Yeah.
Really?
Matter of fact, the truth be told, I was called to preach at 10 and 11. It started at 10 years old. I didn't confess until I was 11. I was denied my calling from 11 years old all the way till I was 25 years old.
Why do you think that is? They didn't believe it?
Because God speaks in different ways. He calls in different ways. And for some people, they think God had to call you the same way he called them. And then two, a lot of people look at the person versus the gifting. They said with Jesus, no good thing can come out of Nazareth. No good thing come out of there. And yet Jesus did, because he came from the slums, the hood. They didn't think anything good. So here come this nappy head boy coming from Glenwood, and anything really good come out of Glenwood. And so, I think that's what it really was all about.
And I think some jealousy comes in there too, though.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just like this. Let's say you are a boxer now, and I'm younger than you, and I come in that ring. I'm more faster, quicker, if you will. Agility is a little bit better, and I beat you. You mean to tell me you're not going to have a little jealousy that this young guy came and took you off your throne? And for me, even now, I'm trying to raise up the next generation to take my place, and I realize that there's some people out there with, I hate to use the word greater gifting, but for the lack of
different. It's all different.
Just gifted, and in areas, let me say gifted in areas that I'm not. I'm not going to be jealous of them. Bree might can be good with math. I'm not good with math. I'm good with reading and science. So I'm teaming up with Bree. So where I'm weak at, she can cover it right, and she can cover that part. And see, the problem with some of these old heads, preachers, if you will, pastors, is that they are afraid that somebody's going to come kick them off their throne of pastoral.
But you know how that, when you say that out loud, you know how that sounds? That it's more about them than it is God.
Right.
That's what that sounds like.
And now go back to the root of this whole conversation.
Yeah.
That's one thing that hinders our younger generation from coming to church, because you got some of these old head pastors or dignitarians who says
SAT word.
we ain't gonna have no dancing in this church, or ain't no rapping in here, or again, you have to change this mindset and understand that God can use anybody and everybody, and everybody should ought to have a platform in church to express their gifting. For that brother that rap, that is Christian rap music. He can rap about God's grace and how God been to him.
A lot of them do.
It's great. And I have a young guy coming to my church tomorrow doing spoken words.
And I think it's the arts are something that, for lack of a better word, it seems like it's frowned upon in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people don't like spiritual dancing, but to me, that's an art form. I mean, I guess I'm different. I'm a little bit on the liberal side when it comes to the arts and performing arts.
Right.
I think that's a form of communication. And now, what's being communicated, now that's completely a different story. But and again, the boundaries that has to be set, because like you said, you wouldn't have played the song walking out. You might have played the instrumental.
Right.
And that would because a lot of the old heads, as you say, they like to say you can't tell the difference between the church and the club.
Yeah.
And they think that it's a sin. Well, not a sin. They think that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, that would make it a sin.
Yeah.
They think that it's wrong for you to use anything other than the gospel to appeal to young people.
But you know what's crazy about that? What?
But in the same breath, they'll turn it. And they won't say it. But I say this: the youth is the lifeblood of the church. If you go to a church and there aren't any youth in there, it's not going to be long. It is not going to be long.
It is a dead church. 50, 60 years ago, it was, if you would say, a sin to have this piano, drums, and all this in church. This hand clapping, foot stomping. Matter of fact, you barely got some amens in some churches because it was just unheard of.
In some churches, only certain people were allowed to say amen. That's why they had the amen corner. They come out of the amen corner. They come out anywhere other than the amen corner, you were out of order.
Yeah. So, but now look at
that was church for.
It's a serious thing. And now every church got a piano. You know, Mahalia Jackson was frowned upon because her music wasn't proper. It was soul traditional, right? And you know, even Aretha, the fact that she was going from secular to gospel, and her music had that secular twang to it, but her audience was great. These people who was in the secular world, though they listened to this music that sounded secular, it had a spiritual meaning to it, a tone to it. So they was reached. So we got to understand, you know, we made leaps and bound changes from then to now we got these soulful songs in church, pianos, guitars, everything you find in a club back then is now in church. But back then they used to frown on that, you know.
So the church has evolved.
It should.
It should evolve.
It should evolve. Not to the fact that we're singing secular music.
I'm sorry. Walking out ain't got to do this to the church. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. We you know, again.
Say it. Say it.
To each his own, but I know in my church, the lyrics wouldn't have been played. Now I know. Again, what ties into my sermon, I have played the lyrics to the love of money. I just had the instrumental playing before I got up to preach, and
people already knew what you were talking.
Yeah, and they were like, and they were bobbing their head and everything. But then I cut it off, and then I said a couple of lyrics, and I tied in my sermon to that. But you know, it's just you have to be careful. It's a fine line that you get to carry, because you don't want to disrespect the house of God either. And
I think now who decides what's disrespectful and what's not disrespectful?
I think the Bible depicts that, you know.
But it's determined so many different ways, because a lot of people coming to the defense of what's his name, the guy that would walk it out.
Bishop Mercury.
It was a lot of. I mean, his Facebook is funny to me. I don't get into that, but it's funny. It's entertaining how people going back and forth like, well, 150 people got saved. And now 100 people didn't get saved. 150 people did something else, but y'all called it saved. But that's why they didn't get saved. But they were going back and forth. And to me, it was entertaining, but.
At what cost did they get saved?
That's what, that's where, you know, I dig a little deeper. I go on YouTube and start listening to some of these other pastors, what they say about it.
Right.
And again, it's split down the middle, because when, I think even in the beginning of this conversation, what you were saying was that we got to make church relevant, so that the old people, like the young people, will feel like they need that get them excited about coming. But then, like I said, not to play devil's advocate, on the other side, they're saying the gospel should stand on its own, because if you got to prop up the gospel, then it stops being the good news. And that's a stance that a lot of them take. They say, if you got to prop up the gospel, if you got to sprinkle dust and stuff to make it shiny, to make the gospel shiny, then it stops becoming stop being the good news.
That is true. That is true.
And they say that's what they think when you do. And again, so when they start doing gospel rap, when they start doing the spiritual dance, a lot of them say that is what that's doing. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
I don't either.
I think there are certain boundaries, because I hate gray areas.
Yeah.
It's either is or it ain't.
Right.
Gray areas where everybody tend to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Because me myself, I love to see somebody expressing themselves in a spiritual dance, because mimes, you know, so the thing that, you know, shout out to Darius Harris, what he does, and a couple more guys that do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you can't. At the same time, you have to be careful, because you get young people coming in there for the spiritual dance or that, and that's all they're getting is the spiritual dance.
Right.
They're not getting the good news about the gospel. Then it becomes a distraction. I think that's where a lot of people. But again, we're talking a gray area. But like I said, I hate gray areas.
But see, my thing is, we can't be in church cussing. having a smoke session, a
Smoke
section over there, right? Yeah, then you definitely don't stepped out of bounds. Giving a platform, like I said, for these young brothers that love to rap and to rap their spiritual encounter with God, or even scriptures in there. That's still good news.
It's good news.
That's still good news.
And one thing about it, Perez, and this is part of my daily prayer, is that God is a master taking something that was meant for bad and turning it into good.
Absolutely.
But you got to participate, because when Xavier was diagnosed with autism, that probably was, had I not been on the journey that I was on, not even knowing that I was on it, had I been anybody different, that would have just said, would have strengthened my disbelief in God. But it didn't. It strengthened it. And then, and like I said, looking back and reflecting, this is what it was doing. It just built it up, because, and I don't say this, to be braggadocious or anything about it, but I think here in Winder, in the Barron County area, I think I can safely say this: when people think about autism, the first thing they think about is Xavier Hutchins.
Yeah.
I would venture to say, and I could be wrong, but they think about Xavier. But it took a village, because, and I like to give people the credit that they're due, because you know how jolly he was with you. He was just crazy about it. And then, and your mom, and Brianna, you know how y'all were with Xavier. Xavier's just like, because Janice, God rest her soul, rest in peace, Janice Plus, what they did for my son, by accepting him and just letting him be who he was. Even shout out to my cousin, Tap Johnson. It's just something about her that he's crazy about. But I always say that Xavier sees with his heart.
That's it.
And that's why I say what I say about him, because, like I said, had I had the wrong kind of mindset, would have just pushed me further down that rabbit hole by thinking that there was no God. But then I saw his God every day with what was going on with my son. I mean, for some of the stuff he do with a computer is just utterly amazing. You sit there, you watch him type with two hands. Zay never had a typing lesson in his life. You tell me that ain't God.
Wow.
And he knows when he doesn't misspell the word.
Wow.
And that can change fonts, screensaver. I took me a while to learn how to change screen. I don't know how you learn how to change screensaver. But I got a funny story about that. My cousin Dale will tell you about. My brother Dale will tell you about that. Blow my mind. I'll tell you about that later. But get back to what I was saying about the faith and our young people. And I just wish that there was something that because I still feel like my generation failed the generation that came after us. Because we didn't understand, and we got to take some of that responsibility. We can't just keep out here saying that's a lost generation. Them children, they just don't hard head. But where did they get that from, though, Perez? But we didn't show them.
That's true.
You see, we didn't show them.
That's true.
Because I was having a conversation with my brother Alex, and he said, back when we were growing up, he said, Mr. Green, who had the good job at GM, lived in your neighborhood. Now, when Mr. Green get a good job, he move out that neighborhood. He move out of that neighborhood because you don't want to be associated with that.
Yeah.
And he said that whole mindset, it kind of took away from the structure of the family. Get back to, like we said, I didn't realize, how important to the fabric of what it was that I was growing up with when I seen Dickie Boy and Patty and Daniel and Scap and Rabbit and all them guys, but like you said, they always, and one thing about them, all of them consistently gave credit to God for what they were. Yeah. And you would look at me like, well, you ain't know why you stand on the top. But what you didn't understand is they were grateful for what they were, and they gave credit to God for that, absolutely, which might have been why they had such longevity here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me tell you, I went through a series of surgeries last year. I almost lost my life.
Yeah, so I remember that. Thank God you did.
It was a moment that I did get depressed. And it was my faith overall that got me through. I'll never forget, Sam, I was on my bed. I just came back from surgery, losing a lot of blood, and my mother was in the room. One of my members of the church was in the room, and the nurses weren't taking good care of me. Long story short, this charge nurse came in the room, white lady, and she sat there, and my mom was just telling her all the stuff that was wrong and everything. And the woman in the middle of the conversation said, "What, is it okay if I can pray with y'all? Can I pray for your son?" And she said, "Sir, can I pray for you?" And I'm like, "Yes," but it didn't hit me till she started praying. She had her hand on my chest and she's praying for my healing and praying. And I was like, wait a minute, this is an act of God. Because here I am in the mindset of, I'm done. I'm not fighting no more. God, just come get me. I can't take this no more. And my family frustrated because I sensed that they sensed that I was giving up. And God sent an angel in that room to pray for me. And this woman, a charge nurse now, says, I'm giving up my position as charge nurse for the rest of the week, and I'm just going to be your personal nurse. But every day she came in, she prayed, went out her way to serve me, and she changed my mindset by talking about how good God had been to her and had blessed her. And I'm like, wait a minute, I am blessed, you know, and I'm hearing constantly over the overcom, cold blue in room such and such on North Side, cold blue and such, and I'm like, wait a minute, you know, I'm in bad shape, but they ain't rain cold on me, so I'm still blessed. God is still doing good works and doing blessing.
And with you being here today, Perez, it's a testimony to how he works.
Absolutely.
But I don't care who you are, whatever you say you believe in, it's gonna get tested.
Absolutely.
You can say because a lot of folks say I believe in God until let something happen. Lord, why are you doing this to me?
I call that.
They don't say, Lord, I'm trusting you.
Yeah.
Lord, I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna trust you. We don't say that.
Yeah.
Lord, why are you doing this to me?
I call that parking lot faith. Parking lot faith. You know, you driving around the parking lot trying to find that parking spot close to the door, and you're like, Lord, if you let me get a good parking spot, I'm gonna go to church Sunday. And then God give you that parking spot, you like, thank you, Lord, thank you. You get back in the car, well, I would go to church this Sunday, but it rained, so I go next Sunday. You know, that's that parking lot faith.
You start making deals with God, you're on the wrong path. He ain't the one you want to make deals with. Right. I mean, do what you're gonna say, and it's not your mind. But again, I just think our young people, and like I said, and on the last podcast, I talked to some of them guys. And some of them supposed to be on the original podcast. I guess they chickened out, whatever. But I talked to them, and it was just those guys are so smart, and young ladies, they are so smart, but they just misguided, and they got talents that they don't know what to do with because they're not aware of them, and that's why I think dialogue and conversations are so important to them. But for whatever reason, not enough of that is happening on a consistent basis. Because that's one thing. And don't get me wrong, when people put on events, that's all they do. Mm-hmm. What happens after the event? Mm-hmm. And which is one of the things to get back to the Hope for Xavier Foundation. We had a gala every year. Since the pandemic, we finally had one back. But what I have to continue to tell people is that the gala is not the work. Mm-hmm. The gala is not the work. Get somebody to a doctor, get somebody to get an official diagnosis, get somebody to understand what your rights are as a parent, get somebody to know what resources are available to you. That's the work. Absolutely. And so when I get those kind of phone calls, that's really what keeps me driven for the Hope for Xavier Foundation. Don't get me wrong, I love the gala because we need that. We need the gala because that's our biggest fundraiser. That we give away the scholarships, and plus it for the printing of the literature that we give away. Because we don't sell anything like the literature we get out of the way. That's one thing I want to start. See if I can get it in some churches. Just pamphlets and a booklet. Because autism is widespread, and people and some people go their whole life, not diagnosed, right? Because the spectrum is so broad. Mm-hmm. You may be fully functioning because, for instance, I know this kid. He used to be in the Hope for Xavier Foundation. His name is David. His mom was one to help me start it. Sandra Rogers. He's highly functional. David taught himself to play like 3 instruments. Wow. Just gave it to him. Did no lessons, no nothing. They just gave him an instrument. He learned how to play it. David can drive. His IQ is off the chart. I don't know what it is. But gifted. In Gwinnett County, he's in the gifted program. That's what he is on the spectrum. But like I said, my son is completely on the other end. Xavier, probably never be independent.
Right.
You know, he'll forever need me. And that's why I want to, try to put things in place, programs in place, change the perception of autism, because a lot of people hear the word autism and they just automatically start thinking negative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do I got to wind up putting them in a home or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why we stress so important the importance of early intervention. But our young people, like I said, when I started there and talked to them guys and girls, young ladies, I came away with the fact these kids are smart, but they're just and full disclosure, they were sitting out there smoking weed, But when you start talking to them about stuff that really matters, I left it with somebody. They need guidance is what they need. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say they need those old people to still be around like you and I had growing up. They need somebody to tell them that, smoking weed, you shouldn't be smoking weed when you're in your 30s and 40s. But then you see somebody in their 30s and 40s smoking weed.
Matter of fact, I'm buying it from you.
But I just don't think that it just needs to be redirection of resources, a redirection of focus on getting these kids to understand that they are valuable to us, Perez. Not just, but we got to get to, before they understand how valuable they are to us, they got to understand how valuable they are to themselves.
That's it.
And that's why, it's important for people like you. And that's why I thought it was important to have you on, because like I said, you started this thing and I witnessed it. Like LeBron James, like I said, I'm a witness. I was a witness, and I saw it. Because like I said, the Watson, Holden, Hutchins family, since I was like, me and Nathan went to school at 6 years old. When it used to be Glenwood High over here, right over there, kicking it. But I just wanted to hear, before we close out, if you could give them a message, to get this thing redirected or turned around. Because I was at an event Tammy Kitty put on AHF, Rural Women in Action, about voting rights, voter registration, which is important. People, please check your voting status. If you're not registered to vote, by all means, get at me, get at Tammy, get at somebody, Miss Maddie Mucker, get registered to vote, because this upcoming election is going to be so very important. But one of the things that came out of it, when I asked a young man about what happened to them, because after Obama wasn't running anymore, Hillary lost because the people that voted for Obama didn't turn around and come back and vote for him, which is how you wind up with a Donald Trump. And he was saying, like, they put a more emphasis on it. I said, but here's the thing for me. I said, I hear what you're saying, but what I in reflection, when I come back and tell them, you guys don't understand what's going on at your local levels. Mm-hmm. You don't understand how important House bills and resolutions are, how money gets moved from one part of district to another district. Like the federal government say, okay, Barrow County, you get $80 million. Okay, so you think that $80 million is going to be divided evenly amongst it's not, because that's where your House bills and resolutions come in that said, well, we need streets paved over on this side of town. Yeah. All they did was some stop signs and just get them that. But so when they were supposed to got 20 million, we get them 5. That's 15 million. Now going with their 20 million, and they got 35 million into your 5. But the federal government sent you 80. Yeah. But your local government, and like I say, you got to pay attention to your House bills and your resolutions, because people actually bring that stuff to the floor about where money should be going. And we wonder why we can't get programs in our neighborhood. We wonder why we can't get all this stuff, because we don't pay attention to the House bills and resolutions. We're too busy looking at, Donald Trump. But when the state representatives, like I said, 19, people don't even know who those are. When you start talking about House bills and resolutions, what's a House bill and a resolution? Remember when we were growing up, it used to be this thing called Schoolhouse Rock. Yep. I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill. That's it. Taught you how a bill becomes a law. That's right. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But it taught you about, and shout out to Eugene Thomas, who drilled it in my head about how important civics was and how important government was. And Thomas L. Person, I heard he died not too long ago. Shout out, rest in peace to him. And I paid attention to that, and that is why I got my footing in politics. Because I love politics myself. But a lot of people don't want to talk to me about politics because you ain't finna run the okie doke.
Right.
Right. Because they know that. But that's where I got it from. And my Aunt Catherine, she was rest in peace. She died when she was 48, but I was the first grandchild on that side, first nephew, first everything on that side. So she made sure she drilled it in my head about the importance of being astute in those kind of things. But get back to what I was saying, if it was a message that you could give them to tell them kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you're worth more than what you realize. Speak to Brianna. What would you say, Brianna? Because Brianna, and like I said, I'm so proud of her. Brianna's talked about last week how she's got herself turned around. I'm so proud of her. But it was a long road. She's 27 now. Mm-hmm. She's 27 now, but she was saying, she realized that she was making some mistakes. She was making some bad choices. But she said like a light went off in her head. She came to that conclusion on her own, but so many of them are not. You see what I'm saying? What would you say to somebody whose light bulb didn't go off in the head and didn't realize at 27, you know what, I need to make better choices? What would you tell them?
Life waits for nobody. Time is of the essence. And I would rather believe in God and die and find out that there wasn't a God than to not believe in God and die and find out there was a God.
All these people call, hey, my wife's on it. Hey, Lisa, Miss Cheryl, how you doing? Amy Bell, thank you for watching as well.
Don Coffee said, won't they do it? Hallelujah. Should have known how to tie both ties. Yeah. I would tell them again, you got to get your faith in God. God can be Buddha, Muhammad, or whoever. And it's crazy how we have all these entities, but for all of them, we call them a God. There is a God.
Absolutely.
There is a higher being. And I would beg you to put your faith in him and see what he has for your life. And when you realize what he has for your life, you will find out your purpose in life. A lot of us are searching for a purpose, and we come up.
Hey, Cheryl, how you doing, lady?
We come up empty-handed because we don't realize God has our purpose already written out for our life, and it's just a matter of spending time with him and communicating. Like we having this dialogue. Yeah. You had the same dialogue with God. It's okay to ask God why. I know a lot of pastors, preachers say, don't question God. Well, how you going to get the answer if you don't ask?
Especially if you're wondering.
If you wonder.
Especially if you're wondering.
And I never understood that. I'm here today to tell you those whys of why I'm still here. Because I have asked the question why, and God has given me the answer.
Hey, Miss Patricia, how you doing?
At the same token, you got to get yourself in the mindset to hear from God and accept what he says. Because a lot of times he already showed you, he already telling you what it is you need to do. It's just you trying to kick against the grain because you realize, man, I got to kick Pookie to the curb because God told me to go over there. And me and Pookie, we good together. You know, we laugh, but again, that's an associate and that's not a friend.
Yeah, and
so God is trying to get you to these friends, this family that's closer than your real family. So my advice to them is trust the process of healing, and let healing first start with yourself.
And my thing to that is that, like, I think God operates in two wheels: His divine will,
absolutely,
and a permissive will. That permissive will, that's what we stay in. You see what I'm saying? We try to do it on our own, but we always gonna have to wind up running back to that divine will.
Yes, sir.
Because that's in His divine will. That's where all the promises are kept. Perez. That's what everything. I got this from a pastor about 5 years ago. I was getting an award, humanitarian award somewhere at Greater Breakthrough, as a matter of fact. And I forget where that pastor was from, but he said that when he said that, I've been chewing on that ever since. And I give him credit too. It's not something I came up with on my own. He said God operates in those two wheels, the permissive will and the divine will. God's divine will is where He wants you to stay. But that permissive will, that's how we get to say, you know what? I make $200 a week, but I'm gonna get me a $500 car note. That's that permissive way. But you know what I'm saying? God allowed me to get it, so He must want me to have it. And then you realize when the repo man comes, it wasn't God.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? But like I said, in His divine will, that's where all the promises are kept. And He won't let you down. And you have to give God His time. And it's not just on Sunday morning that you get to. No. Because for me, it's every morning on the way to work. I don't listen to a radio. I turn the radio down. That's just me and God on my drive all the way to work. Mm-hmm. Every morning. You know, I'm praying for. Of course, I got my prayer list, my peace and perspective group that I pray for, because I know, again, we're talking about the circle of life. It's a lot of people that bury your child. I can't even imagine what's that like. My brother Alex, my nephew was murdered this past September. Right. I can't imagine what my brother Alex is going through, but I tell him all the time when we do talk, I tell him I'm praying for you. I said, and I tell him I couldn't imagine what you were going through, because Xavier and I was at McDonald's, and sometimes I had this moment where I just sit there and I watch him smiling, laughing, you know, enjoying what he's doing, and then I think in my head, if he was not here, if something would have happened to him. Yeah. And I've heard other people say this. My brother Dale told me he was the first one to say this, but my wife, Lisa, said it too. When she was my wife, she said that she prays every day. Dale said the same thing. He said they pray every day that nothing happens to Xavier, because they said I wouldn't make it because I love my son that much. And they said without him here, and Lisa said, she said, who's ever with you, me or whoever, if they're with you and if something happens to him, they're going to lose you. Mm-hmm. But that's the depth that I have for my son. But that's the only reason I can have that depth is because God. Mm-hmm. And I just pray for that group, peace and perspective, because I know what that's like. I don't know what it's like, and I don't want to know what that's like. Exactly. I don't want to, and then I ain't gonna pretend that I don't want to know what that's like. But my brother always said, you know, he said, I just admire the way you care for your son and love your son. He said, I know a lot of people that wouldn't do it. He said, some of them, at least at the very minimum, they would pay child support and be gone. They would not deal with child. It's with you. He said, I admire you so much for that. But I don't want point. For me, that's like giving credit to a fish for swimming. Because I don't want that credit, you know, because that's what I'm saying. You know, God charged me with His welfare and His being. He's given me, you know, that's why these ideals and all this stuff come up for the Hope for Xavier Foundation. You know, His money. And people always ask, well, what does Xavier get out of it? It's not what he gets out of it. It's what he gives. Mm-hmm. He gives people hope. Mm-hmm. He gets, because when you see Xavier, you automatically are put in a difference, in a happy place, mm-hmm. you know, in a peaceful place. Xavier does that for people. And like I said, go back and look at the last podcast or on my Facebook page. I shared the story on my Facebook page too about this lady and how she said she felt the presence of God in my son. Wow. And the guy was standing right there next to her. He said it. And then Xavier touched her hand, and he just grabbed her hand, you know. And she said she just felt something go through her. And my son just changed some people's lives right there, you know, because every time we go to that McDonald's, and I don't like to call people homeless, I call them displaced, because, you know, God's got a plan for them too. If you think He hadn't got one, you know, no matter where you are in your life right now, I don't care where it is. God has a plan for it already. He just wait for you to get in line to come get it. Absolutely. But they're displaced. And every time we go in the office, because every time when he gets a haircut, that's one thing we go after. Or after we get a haircut, we go to McDonald's, just sit there and talk. And they come over and then they talk. But young people, you're so important to us. And I don't know any other way to say it. I don't know how any other way to say it. Hey, Chris Pat, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. Miss Hendricks, how you doing? It is so important that they understand that. But, you know, and you get frustrated with them, and you want to call them knuckleheads. But like I said, Brianna, we owe y'all. We owe y'all. And it's just like I tell people, saying a debt owed is still a debt that needs to be paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
and we
My 40 ain't gonna move.
yeah, we work like that. and this thing has been this has been a great conversation, Perez. And I got to come back and interview just you, because the world needs to know your story for one. And if you would, I would love to have this kind of conversation, because it's almost like Brianna wasn't here, but Brianna's here. This my girl here. She didn't want to come on. She didn't want to come on. But I would love to finish this conversation or just have just a conversation with you. And again, thank you so much for being here and adding your input. And like I said, the thing about spirituality, young people, if I could give them a message, it's important.
Yeah.
It's got to be, and it can't be 9, 10, 11, 12 down your list.
Mm-hmm.
The further the priority up on your list, the more important you will, and you will understand and make a whole lot better choices, because you will understand how important you are, not just to yourself but to God. And that's what you, because again, and again, I'm just speculating. I'm not a Bible scholar or anything like that, but I just don't think there's going to be any human beings in heaven. Because heaven is about your spirit, it's about your soul, and that's what we all tend to forget. Our souls are housed in this body, but we spend the majority of our time trying to please this body. That's right. Trying to please what's eye candy for us, that we forget about. It's a soul that we are protecting, and it's a soul that's going to heaven. You're not taking this body to heaven. You're not taking your body to heaven. That's not going. It's just your soul that's going to be judged. And I think for the average person, they forget that. They tend to forget that. And again, that's just speculating out there. If anybody thinks anything different, by all means, put it in the chat. Yeah. And this chat has been really live. I don't know why we didn't get this in. Brianna should have had you to monitor the chat. We got some great comments. Said, there is a process of healing. Trust him. Amen. Again, that's my wife. Chris is watching. He didn't say anything, but Cynthia Hendricks, she's not saying anything. But then, thank you guys for watching. And we're trying to do our best to get up our YouTube subscription. We're up over 1,000, but we're trying to get to that next plateau, which is 5,000. So like, share, subscribe if you have not done so already. Share the videos, because we're going to upload it on Facebook. And again, if you want to do a part, if I get enough, if this one turns out like the last one did, I think it will, we're going to do a part 3. And Brianna, I need you to get some more of your people in here, because Debrasia, what's her name? Debrasia was supposed to be here, and she did not show up. And I'm going to shoot her when I see her. Back in the head. Just kidding. Didn't want everybody to say that. But she's another one that had, and I think spirituality was important for her, which is why she probably made great decisions early on. You see what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, people make mistakes. Mm-hmm. I made, because I'm 61 years old, and I tell people I still make mistakes. I walk outside in the rain with no shoes on. That's and of course my wife. Oh, God. And what and my wife says, "What's wrong with you? Why you doing stuff like that?" But that was the choice that I made. But anyway, so we're gonna get ready to close this out. Like I said, this thing I will replay this back. And so, Perez, any parting words of wisdom before we go? And I'm going to let you have some too. So, any parting words before we go?
Parting words is I want to thank you for allowing little old me to come and be a part of the podcast, the conversation. And I guess my parting words would be just to everybody. Time is getting shorter. People getting crazier. We need to love more than we ever have. Be more patient than we ever have, and help each other more than we ever have. Our people are perishing. The Bible says because of lack of knowledge, and there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be imparted to our people. It's not just the pastor's job to spread the word, but it's everybody's job to spread the word that, look, there is a God.
The good news.
And he saves, he heals, he restores, and just trust him. And As Sister Kofa said, trust the process of healing.
That's Sister Hutchins.
Sister Hutchins.
That's right.
I'm gonna need you, Auntie. I'm gonna need you, Auntie, to go on and switch that over. Switch that on over. Yeah. But anyway, so my parting words is just heal from your 2023 and walk in 2024 with a new mindset of knowing that everything's gonna work out for your good.
Absolutely.
Gonna work out for your good.
Miss Graham, you got anything?
He said most likely this, like Miss Pastor Perez said, this don't stop. I'm gonna just say it from my standpoint.
Absolutely. That's what we're for.
Just keep going. Like, yeah, just
Okay.
keep going.
Yeah. And like I say, your faith will take you to places that you never dreamed that you would ever go.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing about believing in God, nothing's impossible.
Sorry.
Nothing is impossible with God. My son is a living testimony to that. And like I say, he's the master at taking something that was meant for bad and turning it into good.
Yeah.
Because look what he did with autism when it came to my son. He turned it into a whole foundation.
Mm-hmm.
He turned it into a whole organization that gives away scholarship. He turned it into, like I said, the people that we met at McDonald's. And it transcends color lines.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people of all walks of life, you know, they know Xavier, they see Xavier. And you know, and that's nobody but God. And that's nobody but God. And that was one of the things that I'm glad that we had this conversation to understand people, let people understand how important spirituality is and how far you put it up on your priority list. That's how much better you will do. And like I said, like back in the day, you know, older people said they would go in the closet and talk to God. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
My closet is my car on the way to work every morning. Like I said, I don't listen to the radio. I turn the radio completely down, and I'm talking to God about, you know, my life, my direction, of course, my son, my children, and the people that I know who's been touched by tragedy. I call it my peace and perspective group. It's a group of people and I call God my peace and perspective because I know that they're looking for that peace and they're looking for that perspective, and the only one that can give it to them is God. You're not gonna find it in a bottle.
No.
You're not gonna find it in drugs. You're not gonna find it in a bunch of women. You're not gonna find it in a bunch of men. You're not gonna find it in the peace and perspective that you need. You can only find it in God. And like I said, if your success, if what you want is righteous, God's gonna give it to you in His own time. So that's going to do it for us. And again, guys, thank you guys so much. This has been a great discussion. Thank you for that. And thanks for all the guys that have been watching. Hey, Kathy, you came on late. We're getting ready to go. But anyway, you can watch the replay on YouTube. Okay, so you can like, share, subscribe, and get some more of your friends to like, share, subscribe. Well, we're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. We finally hit the milestone of 9,000 views last week, but we're trying to get it up that way. Don't know what happened. Had some technical difficulties. Couldn't get my partner in crime, Reggie, on here. So that means to end this broadcast, we all at the end of every broadcast, we like to say it's a wrap. So Reggie's not here. So I'm going to ask Brianna and Perez on the count of 3 to say it's a wrap, and we will end this podcast. 1, 2, 3. It's a wrap.